Lori here. I'm here today to do part one of my April reading wrap up. I am going to chat through the first 6 books that I finished and talk about one DNF that I had, because this is the book that I think sort of caused me to read a little bit less. I was reading really, really long books for the first half of the month. All the books I'm going to talk about are pretty much 400 pages, so just led me down a little bit, and I got a bit distracted with my podcasts. But I'm on the upswing and I've had a break. I'm going to have a bigger week next week because it's testing, so I will have a little bit more time. So yeah, I did want to do this because I feel like if I don't, it's going to be a very, very long wrap up at the end of the month. And I'll do my stats at the end of the month as well. But the first book that I picked up was for the Aurelium TBR, the Magical Readathon, and it is Read, a book on your a book highly rated on your TBR. So I chose Tristan Storm Punches a Hole in the Sky, and here's a photo. Physical copy of this, but I actually like this book. I have had this book on my TBR for so long. I actually borrowed it from a friend, and she actually read it without her book, and I feel sort of bad about that. But this is one of the first series in the Rick Riordan Presents world, and I really enjoyed it. I would probably give it 4 stars for review. I thought that it was a really interesting story. It does deal a lot with grief, but you follow this boy named Tristan Storm. He is dealing a lot with a grief over the death of his best friend, and he gets sent, after he loses a boxing match, he gets sent to, I feel like it's Alabama. Yeah, he gets sent to a farm in Alabama to be with his grandparents, but before he gets too far into his trip, a magical creature kidnaps the journal that his best friend was writing in, and he goes on an adventure to save it, and he gets thrust into a world set in a richly imaginative world populated by African American folk heroes and West African gods. And I just really love this story. I think that my students will really like it. It's definitely a book that I'm going to bring and give to them because my friend said that I could. But I really like this book. I love Tristan Storm. I got the second book from the library. We are heading into middle grade May, so it's possible I'll read it next month as well. I thought it was a bit on the long side, and it got to be a little bit like there was a lot of characters. We got to meet a lot of characters. But other than that, again, this is an arc, so I don't know if it was cut down a little bit or it was tightened up a little bit. But this arc came out in 2019, so a long time ago. But I really enjoyed it. I love Tristan Storm's character. I love that they really did talk about the grief process. I just love the different African American gods and folk heroes that we got to meet. I love Gun Baby as a character. It was great. I gave it 4 stars, and I'm really excited to continue reading the series. And then the next book that I picked up was an audiobook, and this is the only historical fiction book I've read this month, but that is Between Devil and Desire by Lorraine Heath, and here is an actual photo. In the series, I read In Bed with the Devil, I think last month, and I really like that one. This one follows Jack. I will admit, Jack took a lot to grow on me. Jack has had a very, very sad life. Jack is the main character in the first book that sort of affected Lucas's life and how Luke, I think his name was Lucas, and how Luke was put in the position that he was, how Luke's parents died. So this is his book, and I will admit, it took me like midway, a quarter way through the book to actually like Jack, because he's a really, really hard character to like. He's very, very like over the top, and he's very, very arrogant, and basically the book starts off with Jack getting sent to this house, and he has basically been bequeathed this widow's fortune to watch over her house, and her young son, and he has no idea why. And he also runs a gambling club, and he decides to take everything literally, basically, and he's trying to like take all her possessions and have a stronger hand in raising her son. That is the part that I really struggled with. But as the book went on, you started to uncover the mystery of like what happened to her husband and why Jack was put in this position. And by the end, I really liked it. I also love that it was like a widow romance. I also love that like there was a little boy involved. That was really the highlight part of it. I gave it 4 stars. I really did enjoy it. I just didn't love Jack as a character, but again, he grew on me. I think that's sort of the point. I'm really excited to get to Franny's book. I was hoping it would be this month, but it'll probably be next month or in June, because I'm going to try to read a lot of middle grade books in May for middle grade May. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. I really did like it. I think I liked book 1 a little bit more, but I did like the female character in the story a little bit better. So sort of evens it out, but it was enjoyable, and I did read it pretty quickly. Then I wound up putting down When the Night Breaks by Janelle Angelis. It has nothing to do with the book. I actually really am excited to read it, but I feel like because I read this at the start of the pandemic, I need to refresh myself. I did wind up buying Where Dreams Descend because I remember really enjoying it. I just felt like I did not know what was happening, so I feel like I need to reread Where Dreams Descend and then pick this book up, so it might be a summer read once I actually have a little bit more listening time. Story of my life, but this is why I felt like I got a little bit, bogged down with the details. And then the next book that I picked up was another Rick Riordan Presents novel, and that is Harusha and the Nectar of Immortality. This is actually the last book in the series, and I really enjoyed this. I gave this book 5 stars. I devoured it in a lot of ways. It was a really fun, fast-paced read. It was a story that I think ended so well, and I think it gave all of the 5 main characters a solid hero moment, and I just really enjoyed it. It was about 400 pages as well, but I read it pretty quickly, and this is the one that I really liked, and I'm so happy that I was able to complete the series. I was able to listen to Ronnie Chashki's one of her podcast interviews. I got to go to the book signing for this as well, which is really exciting. But overall, I really enjoyed it, and I'm excited to see what she writes next. But yeah, 5-star read. If you've not picked this one up, it's an Indian-inspired fantasy story. I can't talk too much because it is the last book in a series, but I really liked Aru and all the characters. And then the next book that I read was another 5-star read for me, and that is Sophia and the Bone Song by Adrienne Tooley. Sweet Bitter Magic, and I really enjoyed that novel last year, like quite a bit. It was another 5-star read for me, but I actually like this one a lot more. I really enjoyed it. So you basically follow this main character named Sophie, and there's a thing called in the society called musical magic, and she is basically training under her father, who's a musician, to be his apprentice, and then she'll get chosen. But when an unexpected girl comes to like try out, her father chooses her instead, and after her father's subsequent unexpected death, she has to basically train this girl for the job that she always believed she would have. It is an LGBTQ plus romance. I love this book. I devoured it. I thought it was great. I'm a theater teacher, so any book that has music or art in it is really, really fun to me. But it just was an interesting take on it, and I really love the romance. It was definitely hate to more, and that's like one of my favorite fantasy tropes. It really is, especially like for this story, because there wasn't another character that the character was like competing with, or it wasn't like a love triangle, which is what I struggle with sometimes in fantasy. There's like always a character that the character knows longer, and that's who they tend to like, that's who I like them to be with. That wasn't a case here. I just love the setting. It had like, bard elements to it. It was great. There was also like an element of like how her father died. That was really great. There was a lot of fun side characters, and I really enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I really was excited to see what she's working on next. But this is definitely a book that I wanted to enjoy and really did enjoy. And if you're looking for another fantasy novel by this author, or even an LGBTQ plus fantasy novel, or you, like me, are a big fan of the arts in your world and want to see it and represent it in a fantasy novel, I would recommend this. If you like Forgery of Roses by Jessica Olsen, I think you would like this one as well. And then the last 2 books in this reading vlog were a bit of a disappointment, I will be honest. The first one is Alone Out There. Here is a photo. Wrap up. I think this was more of like a me thing. I think I really struggled with this because I was not the biggest fan of the concept. I did get this book for review, and honestly, it was okay. It was probably like a 3-star read for me, but I don't like it's basically Lord of the Flies in space, and you follow these characters. It's set in the future, and these characters all these teenagers are sent to space by themselves. And they have to sort of figure that part out. And I struggle with Lord of the Flies stories. I always have, so maybe it was just a me thing. I thought the characters were interesting, but the story just didn't really capture me. I only gave it 3 stars. I wound up listening to the rest of it because I was really distracted. But it was okay. If you're really into like science fiction stories and really into kids being totally on their own with no adults. It was okay. There was a murder mystery element to the story as well that captured me towards the end. It was okay. I enjoyed it. It just wasn't my favorite, but it was a 3-star read. A couple of trigger warnings for this book. It does deal a lot with grief, death of a parent, and the talk about sexual assault. So just want to say that those are triggers for this book, and just wanted to say that just if you're curious. I read Very Bad People by Kit Frick. I will preface this by saying I read I Killed Zoe Spanos and really enjoyed it. It was a murder mystery. It was set in the summer on the beach. I just really, really liked it. This book did not do that for me. I only gave this one 3 stars, and I think I was a little bit led astray, like, I recently, because I thought this book was a murder mystery, and it's not. It has elements to that, but, like, the back was pitched as, like, she was trying to uncover what happened to her mom. Her mom drove her into a lake with her and her sisters. Her mom died, and they don't know what the reason is, but then she goes to this boarding school where her mom attended. That it really is more about the boarding school and the secret society that she attends. The bigger, like, the way the story was written, I wasn't captivated. It wasn't as captivating to me as I Killed Zoe Spanos. There was some big obvious similarities between these two stories. I will say that I don't want to say too much to go into spoilers. But it very much focused on the bad actors on campus trying to enact change on this college campus or this high school, which reminded me a lot of my college, which I really like that part of it because it reminded me of when I went to college. Like, it just reminded me of the environment of that. But it wasn't really a murder mystery. It was more of, like, a secret society story. I liked it. I didn't love it, and I think it wasn't my favorite. But I still really do like I Killed Zoe Spanos, and I'll probably read more by this author in the future. This book just wasn't it for me. So if I had to choose favorites, I would probably say my 2 favorites were Harusha and the end of the Nectar of Immortality, and then Sophie and the Bone Song. And if I had to choose books that I didn't like as much, it would probably be Very Bad People and Alone Out There. So those are my thoughts for the books that I read in the first part of March, or oh my god, I'm so out of whack today. April. Let me know in the comments what are some books you have read recently and what was your favorite, and I'll talk to you soon for my next video. Bye, friends.